What's going on, everybody? And today I'm going to talk about the limits of how far should you push yourself doing something that you naturally don't like to do or don't want to do. And I'm going to give an example with myself so that people can relate to that example and maybe project that example onto their own situation in life and their own different circumstances as far as what they like and what they don't like. So for example, if you leave me naturally, what I naturally would like to do and would be inclined to do is to take long walks and long hikes in nature, in greeny, hilly, between the trees, deep trees type of nature, hiking and observing nature and living with nature, and doing trips in the mountains, the greeny mountains and stuff like that. This would be naturally what I would be inclined to do, and I can do this forever and ever and ever without ever getting bored, right? So something like whatever, a nature observer, forest organizer, something like that would be probably a job that I would be more very inclined to do and very happy to do naturally, just by my nature, right? Another thing that I would naturally love to do and I just can keep doing forever would be bodybuilding, right? I mean, bodybuilding to me is very simple, it's very nice, it's very straightforward. When you work out, you're able to see the results that you put in the bodybuilding. My body responds very, very well to hypertrophy training, and my muscles get big very fast, and I naturally have big muscles, big arms, big chest, by just working out naturally. And if you add to that the more sophisticated compounds and the more sophisticated routines in bodybuilding, then my body just blows up and becomes even more and more inclined to respond to hypertrophy. Now, an example of something that I can force myself to do by force and be very good at, but I'm forcing myself to do it, and I'm going to explain the things that go into this term, forcing yourself to do it. That would be, for example, let's say computer science and coding and machine learning and deep learning and structuring mathematical algorithms to design machine and deep learning or solve machine and deep learning problems. Now, this is something that I'm not naturally inclined to do. I don't think any human, from an evolutionary perspective, was, at least in the recent evolutionary development of humans, is inclined or is made to sit and stare at a computer all day for most of his life, to be a proficient, programmer or engineer or things like that. Of course, engineer is different. I'm talking about programming right now, and only programming that pertains to looking at computer screens and code for extended periods of time. Now, this is something that I can force myself to do and force myself to get very good at, and I was successful in forcing myself to study it and to perfect some parts of it and to gather so much information about it for extended periods of time and finish so many certifications and specializations in it, right? Just by force, by sheer force of forcing myself to do it. And I'm gonna detail how I did that, right? Do I enjoy it? Absolutely not. Can I force myself to do it and get it done? Yes. Now the question is, why would you force yourself to do something that you don't like or don't enjoy to do or not inclined to do, right? Because I talked in a video before about the intersection of success, something like that you love to do, something that something that you're talented at. The intersection between something that you love to do and something that you're talented at. Some people would add to this intersection a third variable, which is something that you can make money on, right? But back to the issue of why would you force yourself to do something? For so many different reasons. Because sometimes you believe that this is what you need to do at this specific part of your life. Sometimes in a human civilization, they believe this is what they need to do to sustain survivability or to win at a specific portion of their life. An example of that would be, it's very simple. A guy who he likes, for example, to surf every day, a dude who likes to go to the beach and surf every day. But let's say in civilization competition and struggles, sometimes to win, you have to sit and engineer spacecrafts and engineer drones and AI algorithms for your country or for your civilization to compete and to win against another civilization. So if you just sit around and surf all day, then that other country, if they're able to force themselves to engineer rockets and engineer spaceships and engineer combat jets and engineer satellite systems, they were able to gather more intelligence about you, they were able to kill you, they were able to get to space faster than you, and eventually they will win and you will lose, because they were able to gather more of that necessary technology that may not be enjoyable to you, you may not be inclined to do it, but it was necessary in the competition of civilizations, or countries, right? You can say any example, the competition between America and China, the competition back in the day between the Soviet Union and between America, right? So this is to answer the question of why would you force yourself to do something that you don't like to do. Now, so the answer to that is because it's your belief. You believe that this is what you need, or this is what's necessary at that moment in time. You may not enjoy it, but you still believe that it is necessary, right? So you force yourself to do it. Or people, this is one of the reasons why people would force themselves to do stuff. Okay, now that we answered the question, why should you force yourself to do something that you don't want to do, right? Why not just do what you love, do what you like? If in my example, the things I would like, walks in nature, I could just walk in nature and do, nature videos for the rest of my life. And you can make a lot of money on that, in YouTube and whatever. You can make a lot of money on that. Traveling, people do traveling videos now. Do they make a great living from it? Of course, you can make a great living from accumulating the views if you keep doing it consistently and long enough, right? Can you make a great business around surfing if that's what you love? Of course, right? So why should you do something you don't want to do? This was the answer. Now, going into the other question. So when you force yourself to do something that you don't want to do, then by necessity, you're going to be disregarding something that you love to do, to force yourself to do something that you don't want to do, right? Because you believe this is the absolutely most necessary element, or more necessary and persistent thing that you need to pursue in life, right? And these are the type of choices that people have to make in their lives, how can you decide that? How can you decide whether to force yourself to do stuff, or to engage in something that may not be enjoyable to you, versus to follow your passion and do something that is enjoyable to you and build a business around that, and eventually be successful in making money off of what you love, or something that you love, however trivial it may be. I mean, when you look at something like bodybuilding or surfing or even fighting in MMA, right? None of these things have any survival function, have any survival value to the human race. I mean, when somebody trains jiu-jitsu and MMA for their whole lives and they become the best fighter, how does that serve the survivability of humans? Doesn't add anything to the survivability function of humans. People who are actors, entertainers, singers, how do they add to the survivability function of the human race? Zero. They're not making food. They're not farmers. They're not making potatoes. They're not doctors treating you to help extend your lifespan. They don't design, spaceships so that it can take the human civilization to Mars, or to other planets, so that it can increase the probability that humans survive in the case that Earth gets destroyed, which is a lot of things like the people like Elon Musk talks about, right? They don't design cars, they don't design ambulance cars that can take you to hospital fast when you're about to die. They're not engineers. Absolutely no survivability function, right? So if you surf all day, bodybuilders, how do bodybuilders, or maybe bodybuilding, because it involves a lot of knowledge about nutrition and a lot of knowledge about how to get strong and stuff like that. So maybe they have something to add when they engage in fitness and train people and tell people how to maintain hypertrophy training, which helps maintain muscle mass and bone density at an older age, and also the knowledge of nutrition can help a lot of people maintain a longer life expectancy. But most of these vanity activities that people love and like, and they build businesses around, and they build their lives around, many of them, man, they have no any survival value to the human race as a collective, if you really think about it. Like, we need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to go places, transport, we need shelter, clothing. And then when you get really sophisticated and think about the probabilities of the future, you get into things like, extending human life to multiple planets to hedge against the probability that Earth gets destroyed in the future, or that, all the oceans on the Earth melt and stuff like that, and all these different things. So, back to the original question. How do you make a choice between these two things in life? How do you make a choice between forcing yourself to do a thing that you hate for the sake, because you think it's the necessary, the thing that you have to do at that moment, or between following something that you are passionate about and building your life around that, however trivial that may be, even from your own perspective. And I think really the answer that I have reached when it comes to this exact question is, do it if you can. Do it if you can. If you can get yourself, and I'm going to get into the techniques of how to force yourself to do stuff that you don't like, and force yourself to master things that you don't particularly enjoy in life. Like the example of someone that likes surfing, but now you have to force yourself to be a machine learning programmer to make a lot of money, because this is what you think that is necessary at this moment, right? Or you want to start an AI business to make a lot of money, right? For example, if you can, right? Can anyone turn themselves into a machine? Is anyone able to turn themselves into a machine? The answer is yes. Will that involve sacrificing a big portion of your humanity? Yes. That will involve sacrificing a huge portion of your humanity. And that will involve sacrificing a huge portion of who you are. Everything that you do and all the experiences that you go through in life change you and sculpt you across your life into a different person, depending on what activities and what route you choose to take in life, right? It's kind of like the concept of adaptation. For example, if you look at sports, and you see that almost every sport, the people that play every sport, that practice every sport, they have a specific type of look, right? You look at the 100-meter sprinters, and they have a specific look. They're muscular, they're ripped. You look at the marathon runners, long distance marathon, they have a specific look. They're so skinny, they barely carry any fat because they have been practicing the sport for so long. Their bodies adapted to look the way and to function in a way that is most efficient for the sport. You look at soccer players and you have a look. You look at rugby or football players, they have a look. They're bulky, big shoulders, big chest. Every sport, you look at the people that play that, practice that sport, and you have a look, right? Life is the same way. And if you do something for so long, you adapt everything else in your life to maximize for that, right? So people that want to become computer programmers, they have a look. It's very difficult, for example, to find a very high-level computer programmer that's a bodybuilder at the same time, right? Those two things conflict so much that it's almost impossible to do them at the same time. Eating 6-7 meals a day, and taking 3,500, 4,000 calories, and training 2 hours a day, and having to sleep 8 hours and maybe a nap of 1 to 2 hours across the day to rest, does not maximize cognitive and brain function. To maximize brain function, you cannot eat a lot of carbohydrates. Eating carbohydrates too much slows down the brain, and maybe you have to fast a while, and maybe you have to eat a different type of food. Maybe some people, for them, the ketogenic diet works to maximize the cognitive function of the brain, but that maximizing cognitive function of the brain does not involve eating a lot of food. Definitely doesn't involve eating a lot of food. So can you be a top-level programmer or mathematician or a machine deep learning engineer and be a top-class bodybuilder at the same time? Most probably not, because maximizing each one of those things conflicts with maximizing the other, as far as the routines that you have to do in everyday life, right? So this is another element that goes back to what I was talking about when I was talking about choosing something. Should you force yourself to do something that you think is necessary but you don't like doing, you don't necessarily enjoy doing, like sitting in front of a computer 10 hours a day to manage a team of programmers or program sometimes yourself and stuff like that, and engage in a software or an AI business that would involve being in front of a computer, looking at a computer screen, possibly in a room for extended periods of time, for an extended portion of your life to get something done? Or should you be out there surfing or taking hikes in nature and being a nature guide, if that's what you like, and building a business around that? And that's a question that a lot of people ask in their lives. My answer was two things. If you can do it, then do it. So do it if you can. You have to understand that for a lot of people, they can't. Either because they don't know the way of how to force themselves to do something. Like if you go to any bodybuilder, let's say, or go to any surfer dude and tell him, sit down, and finish this 9-part machine learning course that involves looking at a lot of mathematical notations and code that is given by a professor of AI at Stanford. That course probably could take maybe 4 months. He may not have the ability to get himself to sit in front of a computer and finish that course. He simply lacks the ability. He's just not able to do it, right? Some people just can't, right? And this is why I say, if you can. Many people, they can't do it. They can't even get themselves to imagine doing something like that. How can what? I can't sit in front of a computer looking at these weird things all day. Some people can't even imagine that. For them, it's unimaginable. You know, where would you even start? You know, they don't even know. But some people can. They can push themselves to do specific things that is against their nature, but they have the ability. They know a way, or one way, to be able to accomplish that. So my first answer to the question, why would you force yourself to do something that you don't want to do, is because you think it's the absolutely necessary thing for survival that has to be done at this moment in life, in your life or in the life of your country, nation, whatever, for a bigger goal. Two is, why would you do it? You know, should you do it? And I said, number one, if you can, and number two, and that's very important, if you can make it enjoyable. If you can make it enjoyable. So number one, if you can. Two, if you can make it enjoyable. And this, you know, should be basically a whole video by itself. Answering the question of how can you force yourself to do or to master something that you naturally don't like. And how did I do it? For example, myself. I was never naturally inclined to study deep learning mathematics, to study multidimensional calculus and algebra. I was never inclined for that, to be doing that. But I was able to force myself for an extended period of time to get my ass to sit in front of a computer for an extended period of time, right? And accumulate a whole bunch of knowledge and certifications in that field of computer science, machine learning, deep learning. Even though I'm not particularly inclined at all to like in that field. So in the next video, I'm gonna touch upon the ways of how someone can basically force themselves to do something that they may not necessarily be inclined naturally to do in life, to get something done, either on a short-term perspective or even in a long-term perspective, so you can study and accomplish things on the long-term perspective. And I'm going to mention a few examples that may touch on different dimensions of life. One would be the cognitive dimension, how to improve your brain so much that you can accumulate so much knowledge in a very so-called, you know, more complex fields like deep learning and machine learning and AI, stuff like that. Or I'm gonna also touch a little bit on the dimension of athletics. If somebody's not even athletic, so it could be the opposite. Somebody who's not inclined to athletics whatsoever or bodybuilding, and he wants to get in that field, how can you force yourself to go there as well, right? So I'm gonna touch on 2 or 3 variables and give examples from human biology, psychology, and even sociology on how someone can achieve those things. And I'll see you in that video.